You're listening to Permission to Shine, the podcast by Sherisse Bisram. The Oxford Dictionary describes permission as the action of officially allowing someone to do a particular thing, consent, authorization. What if you were that someone and you gave yourself the permission to be everything you wanted to be and more? No more playing small and accepting less than. You are worthy of the life of your dreams, regardless of what it is that you've been through. And honestly, it's exactly what you've been through that has shaped you into the version of yourself that you are now. Like a diamond, you've endured so much, but instead of breaking, you have become stronger and brighter. And if that's not a reason to shine, then I don't know what is. And if nature can do it, then why the hell can't you? You are brave, you are strong, you are powerful, and you are enough. Hear my call and give yourself the permission to shine, because you don't realise how many people are inspired by your light. Like, share, follow, subscribe, and listen out for more. Stay tuned. Hi everyone, we are back with episode 13 and I'm so excited because I have the incredible Megan Westpfel here to share her story and her light with you all. And I have watched Megan's journey for the last few years, and actually beyond that, to be honest. I think as dancers we were crossing paths but not quite intertwining, and then obviously both of our lives have transitioned in a different beautiful way with the same kind of undertone message, which is just so beautiful and incredible. So welcome, Megan. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. That was lovely. Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. And actually, funny enough, I was on your podcast, wasn't I, at the very beginning? And your podcast was the very first one I ever went on. And I had such a lovely experience that inspired me to keep going. So thank you for that experience as well.
You're so welcome. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thank you. Would you want to tell everyone about you and, yeah, as much as you'd like to share?
Okay. Let me know if I chat way too much. Just cut me up and throw in anything you want to chat
you're
about.
more than welcome.
Okay. So, I'm 28. I feel like just for whatever reason, my age is a good place to start. My career has been a dancer. And I am now looking into stepping more into my creativity, choreographically, and also just my creativity in general. I bloody love dance. It's been my biggest healer and biggest way of expressing and understanding my emotions, as well as the egotistical side of it, of adoring the adrenaline of performing and the kind of high life of it. I've loved that. But I am at a place in my life where I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm at a really nice crossroads in my life right now, which is overwhelming, but also at the same time super exciting and a lot of possibilities. Like I feel like the world's really opened up, because my whole life I've always known I wanted to dance, I wanted to be a dancer, I wanted to perform. And then suddenly I'm at a point in my life where I'm like, oh, I kind of feel very at peace with that. And, I never closed the door on performing, but I do feel like, okay, what do I want now? And that's obviously quite scary when your whole identity has been one thing the whole of your life. Like I started dancing when I was 3. My mum was a dancer, or is still a dancer, of course. But my whole life has been surrounded by achieving this dream, which was to dance for a living. And I've done it and done well at it. And I'm just like, okay, like I've never thought of anything else. So it's interesting. God, I don't know I honestly don't know where to go with it. Like it's such a big question. I mean, like if I continue with what I was saying, it's my life has been surrounded by and just completely, utterly focused on achieving my dream as a dancer. So, I think that's been beautiful, and it's been amazing to be able to have that focus and determination. And I think growing up to actually know what you want to do, because I think there's so many people out there who, no matter what age they are, still have no clue how they want to earn a living, let's say. So I feel very grateful and blessed to have really been brought into this world really having a clear focus, and to only be sitting here now and suddenly going, oh, how else do I want to exist? I think is a privilege, really, to be able to have felt an achievement in another area of my life. I've done a load of traveling. I've really found a faith in spirituality and in and in putting my trust into the universe and feeling very at home in feeling a home in somewhere other than myself and other than this reality. I feel that's kind of come through from being in a lot of dark places and figuring out how to get out of dark places and finding a lot of light and and a lot of belief in something higher than myself. Gosh. Yeah, I feel like I'll pause there.
Yeah, amazing. I wanted to let you say everything. I thought I was going to stop you at one point. I was like, no, there's more, and I want to hear it. So, thank you for sharing that. It was such a beautiful and honest answer, and I think that's really what everything I do is about, that real honesty and that deep-rooted space. Because, like you said, it's very rare that people know exactly what they want to do. And I think similar to you, I think I always knew that I wanted to be a dancer, but equally, when I start to transition into this space that I'm in now, I really, for me, and this could be completely different for you, but I felt like the dance for me was always my ego. And then the work that I'm doing now is my soul-led space. So it's almost like I really found that, I wouldn't say polarity, but almost, I guess I talk about this quite a lot, and it's almost like taking that layer off. Like the last episode, I said it was a bit like Venom. I don't know if you've seen the film Venom, but it's like an alien that like molds into his body, and it's like almost like ripping off that layer and being like, actually, what's underneath that space? And I think we can absolutely be in harmony with both 100%. But I feel like for me, I was always searching for validation through dance, whereas I feel like now I've taken that hat off and I can put it on whenever I want to. I feel like I'm allowing Sherisse to really come through. And I've never really met her at this depth before. And that's a really nice space to be in. And I don't know if you resonate with that at all, but I felt like there's an element of that there. And obviously I've watched your choreography and I've watched your creative process and everything. And I know that it's deeper than what my dance was in terms of where I sat with it 100%. And I feel like you have that beautiful space where I don't know what the word is, but you almost like flow between states, which is just really lovely to watch. And I think when, so in the Masters, Megan was one of the choreographers that we had on board. And I was adamant that we needed to have Megan, like 100%. Like when I'd explain the concept and all of these things to my team, which obviously for me, again, was obviously this burning light of female empowerment and like togetherness and this rise of the feminine energy. That was all really what my soul's calling has been my whole life. And I feel like that was just the first step to really getting into it. And there was what you said in your voiceover that we had you do, and it was about the transmutation of pain into power. And funny enough, when I'd heard you say that, I literally said the same thing in my audio that I'd done for the documentary for my like dissertation, and I'd said about alchemy and then turning pain into liquid gold. So I felt like there was almost this like synergy that we had within that space. It was really nice, and I feel like that's probably since then, and obviously beyond that point, because obviously I wanted you on board, that I felt like there's always been like a distant kind of connection. But I think that's the thing when you lead from your soul, isn't it? You find those people that you're like, yeah, I vibe with that. That's the vibe.
Yeah, totally. That's so nice that we had that synergy going on because and it's nice to see that mirrored in someone else, to have that kind of perspective on, because obviously when we're on our own journeys, it can feel so like, you against you, or not even you against you, just you teaming up with you. It's such a solo, I say lonely, not in a bad way, but it's just like, it's very personal journey. So when you're able to witness someone else, you can't speak for them, but what seems from the outside like a similar path, it's nice to be like, if I wanted to, we could engage. But there's also that element of like, it's nice to witness someone else either connect with what you're saying or vice versa, or they're just living a truth. And I think that's really beautiful that that's been felt. And yeah, I really felt that with you when you were on my podcast as well. I remember coming off being like, oh, that I feel really like we vibed off each other from our similarities and what we were both experiencing at the time, and we both believing clearly. Yeah.
Nice. It's nice to find that, and I feel like I'm finding it more. It's a little bit like I don't know how much into this you are. I feel like you are, but that soul family, you know, like you don't quite know the people in your soul family, but there's always like a connection from afar. And I feel like I'm really finding those people in these spaces now, which is really lovely. And again, like you said, it doesn't need to be anything. It can just be the acknowledgement, which is still just a really lovely space to be in. I think we need, like for me in the world, and I feel like this definitely dismantling this patriarchal structure of how we see each other in this feminine space of, you know, this rise of the feminine energy is really coming through. And I feel like this softness is definitely, I can feel it. It's the age of Aquarius and all of this beautiful like light energy. And the more we celebrate each other as women, I think, you know, because we're in that space to do so, that I feel like, we're going to create more spaces like this, which is really a lovely thing for sure.
And but I guess sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, go.
Yeah, and I guess not, and then I'm not saying this in a bad mouthy way, but I think stereotypically, and I think definitely in the past, with the industry that we've both been in, it can feel very competitive amongst women.
Yeah.
Competitive, and there's a lot of like comparison in there, and it's a lot of like, I mean, I'm speaking for myself here, but like you want to be the most, like the most attractive, the most sought out after. You want to be the most talented. You want to be the sexiest. You want to be, you know, all this. And that's such like on a subliminal level when you're in a rehearsal room or in an audition, how supportive actually is it when it's really quite like, yeah, I want to say toxic. Yeah, it is the word. But I think, you know, when, you know, I'm not saying that that's in all spaces, because I've been in some amazing spaces with like-minded dancers who it's all about like, you know, celebrating the other person and making each other feel supported in an environment that is super vulnerable and can be super exposing and really demanding. So I'm not saying it's like all dancers, I'm not saying it's like the entire industry, because I do think there are some beautiful shifts, but I definitely know in my career, especially earlier on, it might not have been as supportive as it's beginning to be now. So yeah, when even like going back to what you said earlier about removing this like venom, this like layer, it's almost kind of taking away that pressure to the validation, and also the feeling of constantly having to be in competition with one another.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
fully, and I completely resonate with everything you said. And I think you know, even at the start of my career, I was often walking into auditions and being the only brown girl in the room, because, you know, obviously I'm 32 this year, so I think that was a shift as well. And it's now the industry and the world's become more accepting of, you know, all races, genders and colors and all of that. It's definitely a lot more inclusive. But yeah, the baseline, I completely agree with you. The baseline is that we want everyone to do well, but do we want them to do better than us? You know, in that dancer space, it really is that. Equally, we all want our friends to do well, but we want the job. So it's like you can share, but there's only a certain extent of how many roles are available. And I really got tired of being in that energy and space. And now when I take on dance work, it's always from a space of this is just fun. This is just fun for me now. And I think that's a nice space to be in, because almost you take your power back, don't you? And you can choose. And I think that's something that the younger dancer version of me didn't get to kind of have that discernment, because I was just so single-mindedly looking for the shiny stuff, you know. I really feel that now. So I'd love for you to kind of talk about your life's journey and the obstacles that you faced along your way, because that's really, I think, the part where, you know, I find with my clients and things like that, we always talk about our life as an overview, but never really actually the depth of what we went through. And it's those parts I feel like everyone loves to hear, because it just makes us feel, again, less alone.
Yeah, no, totally. I've actually been recently, I say recently, like if I just speak about, for example, this past 9 months, year, I've really taken a lot of tumbles, which might not be recognizable from the outside, but like internally, and I've really taken some knocks, not from anyone else other than just like my own mental health. I have a tendency to, I have had a tendency to slip into depressive episodes, or like just feeling really downward spirally, and that can usually affect how I view myself physically and my worth. It can really, like, at times, it's this past 9 months, it's taken a massive hit, and I'm grateful for it, really, because it's meant that, I started getting therapy again in February, and it's meant that I've been able to really do some serious work to be able to unpack why this still comes up, why these habits get in the way of me living fully in my full potential, to be able to step into my power. Like, why does this keep happening? Why is there repetitiveness? And obviously, especially in the past 9 months, but in general, like, because I reckon, when COVID came around, I always think of it as, of course, COVID, that whole period, that whole pandemic was really, traumatic for all of us in so many ways. But for me personally, it actually gave me a chance to look at myself in a way that was like, and I know a lot of people can agree, but actually, like, look at myself in the mirror and be like, oh my God, I've got a chance to actually pause on life while I figure out how to love myself more and deal with my shit in my own personal space. So I really took that on in COVID. And because I'm kind of working gradually backwards, but with my history, a lot of it is quite rooted in eating disorders and and like depression, and rooted from a lot of experiences in my life that has caused me to have a lot of guilt, a lot of shame, a lot of disgust, which has manifested into control with my food and how I look. And obviously, being in an industry that isn't very supportive of that at all, meant that when I instantly left college, it was just go, go, go. Like, I wasn't very well at college. I got into quite a lot of drugs as well, to be honest. I was in a very toxic place, but I was high functioning on it. So I was able to still have a career and go about my life. But internally, when the doors closed, when I shut off from the world, I did just feel baseline, just super insecure and just super like destructive and just chaotic. And just like I was just on this treadmill that just wouldn't stop. And I, thank you for my career for being so like busy and beautiful. But the year before COVID, I was just on this, my emotional roller coaster. The highs were high, the lows were really low. And when it came to, beginning of 2020, I was just exhausted. And so when the opportunity came to stop, I was like, oh my God, thank God. Because I hadn't ever looked at truly deeply how to heal this gremlin in me that was this eating disorder that would tell me that I was an awful person, that I needed to look a certain way, that I was just disgusting. So COVID really gave me an opportunity to begin to look at that and bravely begin to, actually think, I can't live my life like this anymore. I can't continue like this. I'm not able to fully enjoy life. I mean, obviously there's moments in my life during that time where I was really enjoying myself, but there was this dark cloud where I'd go to bed and feel gross about myself. So it was always like this rubbish ending, or during it, it was off-putting. And it's and I think, even before that, with how my eating disorders came about, like I said, it's filled a lot of guilt and shame and disgust and whatnot. There was a lot of deaths in my family that caused me to, from a young age, really become aware of what death is and how around the corner it could be, how uncontrollable it is. And I think that just knocked me six for thinking like, well, what is the fucking point? And that was at the age of like, yeah, about 12, 13. My parents divorced when I was younger as well, which obviously is distressing for anyone. And yeah, I think that just really confused me. And before that as well, well, not before that, I was quite bullied. Bullied in a way that was, I think I am a very sensitive soul. So it doesn't take much to feel bullied. And I think when I was a kid, I was pretty weird and wonderful. But that didn't rub off well on maybe some of the other girls, and I was maybe a bit jealous, whatever. And in my secondary school, like the boys just absolutely, yeah, just liked to use me as a slut shaming bag. So that obviously is, so I guess what I'm trying to say is the accumulation of feeling unsafe in a lot of places led me to find a way of controlling the uncontrollable, which I felt very out of control. And obviously add puberty into that. Like every single teenager goes through hell at some point in their puberty. So I'm not saying I'm special in any way, but it's just that feeling of like, we all deal with it in different ways. And for me, the way I dealt with it was to self-harm and to just to go super inward, because to go outward just felt so like unpredictable, and felt really like, oh my God, I'm gonna cause a scene. It just fed pun intended, but fed the poor mental health and poor lifestyle choices. But if I come back to some light in that, just to like soothe it, is my family are utterly incredible, and I've only started realizing how absolutely incredible they are in this past year, how much they have always loved me, have always supported me. It's been me in the own way of allowing them in, and for me not really giving them a chance to understand me, or to, yeah. So my family have always been just incredible, and I'm so lucky to have who I have bring me up. I completely bow to the fact that I have dance in my life and have always had it. From a young age, I was always choreographing, dancing, improvising. It was because of how much I felt like I couldn't express myself in so many other ways. Dance was the way I could find emotion and understand emotion. And I think that's what makes me such a good performer, is because the way I have grown up for pretty much all my life is communicating and understanding and just connecting to my inner world through dance, and making it very physicalized, embodied. And so, and if I like sit here now truly, and I'm still obviously working on my stuff, as we all forever will, but I really can sit here now and hold my hand on my heart and be very, if I take a deep breath with it, I am very grateful for everything that's happened to me. I'm very grateful for the dark sides. I'm very grateful for the fact that the choices I made, because it's made me a very, very compassionate person. My empathy for most of my life has felt like a curse, but actually I'm learning is actually such a beautiful quality that I'm learning to understand more and more with each day now. It's meant that I have amazing resilience. It's meant that I am super passionate about, helping people to turn their poison into nectar, or just to help. I know what it's like to feel shit. I know on a very deep, awful level how it feels to hate yourself, or how it feels to really be dark. And I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. And when I feel the energy or learn that someone's in a dark place, I'm not here to try and fix anyone, because everyone has to be able to learn how to fix themselves. But the passion in me lies within, like, I'm more than happy to be this signpost that just pops up in your life, giving you different directions you can walk down. And I'm more than happy to either hold your hand along the way or be behind you, or wherever you need me to be. Like, when another individual's ready, I'm ready, because the feeling of someone feeling awful about themselves, or even just like hating the skin they're in, or just that that can cause me to not sleep at night. So yeah, I'd say that is a kind of summary of me.
No, thank you so much for sharing like such a beautiful, expressive and deep journey. And I think that's really, that's really important as to why I wanted you on as well, for that reason. There's so much depth to you that I feel like I really resonate with. And so much of what you said in your story relates so deeply to my own. And I think that's probably where we have found that synergy in our lives, because equally I experienced a lot of death in my life as a child, and like having one parent, because that parent passed away and was an addict. So it's like, you know, this journey. And then for me, it was like the parentalization. So I became a parent as a child, and all of that
definitely.
development, and how it materializes, and just some really beautiful things that you said in there that just so deep and meaningful. And I think one of them that you said about your family being there for you, and you said you just had to let them in. And that's really, for me, such a key point, because for me, I armored up my whole life to be so toxically masculine that when the pandemic did hit, I was broken open. And then, like, there's a beautiful quote somewhere, and I used it, and then I read it somewhere else, and I was like, okay, maybe I read that before, or subconsciously it was connected. But it's like, you need to break so the light can get in. And I feel like that's almost that realization, isn't it, that you're not on your own and you're not doing this by yourself. But equally, if you don't open, the things can't get out, but they also can't get in. And I think that I just built this wall around me for so many years of my life that it was actually physically causing ailments in the body. And I think we spoke about this the last time, you know, like the body keeps the score, and like I was having like all of those things. But it's funny, isn't it, how it like permeates in so many different ways, you know, that need to control and all of these things that we have to just find a little bit of groundedness in our own lives, because we don't quite understand. So it's our body's subconscious way of trying to find control in the uncontrollable. And that's just the like perplexing thing about life, isn't it? It's just, I really wish that this was just taught at school. And this is why I go into schools and do these workshops, because it's just so important that we understand and we can process emotions. Because, you know, if we'd understood this years ago, it could have saved the heartbreak. But equally, it was part of the journey and as to why it happened. And this is another point that I wanted to bring up, because this has actually really been on the tip of my tongue I was going to talk about today. So it's so funny, because I feel like this week for me has been a reminder of shadowy times, and it's hormones and things like that. But like a channeled message came through to me, and it was like, if you're not tested, how do you know how strong you are? And it's almost like, you know, that idea that we go to the gym, for example, we lift weights, but actually until you need to physically lift your body weight, whether it be on a bar, whether it be rock climbing or something like that, how do you know how strong you are? You're just lifting something for the sake of it. So it's almost like life has given us both these obstacles to be able to dismantle and break and take with us, to pave the way for the next stage of our lives, whether it be to help others or to forge a new path where, like you said, people either follow you or you follow them, or you act with guidance. And it is that beautiful space. And I think for me, it's this like holding people's hand through their dark times is really the key point. And it's so deep. And like you said, that for me, I always say that healing is circular. So it's, you know, it gets a little bit smaller each time, and to the point where sometimes it will just be left with a speck along your way, and you'll just be able to acknowledge that and move forward. But I think that's really where the beauty of life is, because I think unless you've had heaviness and the darkness in your life, there's nothing to compare the light to. So you'd probably feel quite, the baseline of feeling light all the time would feel mundane. So it's almost like we need the darkness to appreciate the light. And it's just really wonderful just hearing like how you're managing that space and processing it, because I definitely feel like for me, the pandemic was that time, but equally along the road that I've gone through now, I've just been reminded of the echo of what my baseline trauma is. And every time just healing it a little bit more. And it's a really painful, but also really beautiful experience, because on the other side of it, even today, I woke up and I just felt like that little shadowy hormone phase had just passed. And I was like, oh, how beautiful that, you know, we can see the rainbow after the rain and all of these beautiful things. So thank you so much for sharing all of that, because it is just so powerful, and so many people can relate to everything you said, which is just so wonderful. But I guess that kind of leaves me in this space of the question, do you feel like, at what point in your life do you feel like you really gave yourself the permission to be you, who you are now, to shine as Megan and not Megan the dancer?
Well, many places, but if I just think of the first things that come to my head, I'd say two things, to be honest. So one of my, I don't even know what to call her, mentor, mother, sister, best friend, I don't know, but Rachel Kay. Rachel used to be my teacher, and then she became, very much like this mentor for once I'd left college. I even like worked for her a couple of times, so she was a choreographer to me. And then she really dived into her method, and I really, was fully supportive of it because I believed it so much. And now, like, me and her have just created a beautiful friendship that is so magical. But anyway, I digress. So when I soon after leaving college, or maybe like within the first couple of years after leaving college, I still very much, whenever she ran something, I needed her in my life because of how like medicinal she was for me. And we did this exercise, and honestly, this sounds so like wanky now because it obviously makes sense, but at the time it was such a revelation. I can't think of what the exercise was, unfortunately, but during one of her workshops, I realized that I wasn't Megan the dancer, and I think I'd always like, oh, it's Megan the dancer, or my family, it's dancer Megan, oh, she's a dancer, it's dancer. And whatever it was peeled back the layers for me to realize, oh my God, I'm a human being that dances. It's an aspect of my life, it isn't my entirety. And I think that kind of blew my mind, because I thought my entirety was dance, and to then suddenly realize that there's a human underneath that layer, and that dance is an area of my life. It made me go, well, what else makes me who I am? And I think obviously that was unraveling. And I also think, just to add to that, I was in a relationship when I was, kind of crossing through second year at college until I was like 21. I think we were together for like 3 years. And breaking up with him, like, I think was probably similar time to this whole like human revelation. And suddenly I wasn't in a relationship, as well as like, all this other stuff I've mentioned around my life around that time. And suddenly I just had to think for myself as an adult who just left college, new young adult, and just figuring out who I am by life experience, by just having to fend for myself, having to decide for myself. Suddenly, like, it's when I was in a relationship at that time, I was very much the girlfriend that was like, whatever you want to do, I don't mind, whatever you want to do, well, I'll be whoever you want me to be. And I definitely take ownership in being very passive. So then suddenly I had to think for myself, and I was like, oh my God, I've never thought for myself. And around that time, I just so happened, I don't know what impulsive thought came over me. I felt like something higher clicked the button to confirm it, but I climbed Kilimanjaro for charity, for Mind. It's also funny reflecting back on it now, because I was doing it for a charity, Mind, that I actually really needed. I should have really taken up the help off of that, but instead I was just supporting a charity that I know would have been great for me, but I wasn't brave enough to dive into yet. And I think, suddenly going to Africa and climbing Kilimanjaro, and even just the whole process of funding, money, and even just the whole process of getting my mind into gear, my body into gear for prepping to climb a mountain, was just super like, wow, I am much more than a dancer right now. I am learning how it feels to just wake up each morning and decide for myself, apply myself, know what I'm capable of, which then led to me to coming back and booking a month away in Bali. So I guess another proper medicine for me to understand who I am was traveling and just making decisions for myself, doing things by myself, meeting people by myself, not with even just friends. Like, I just felt like I just completely needed to be independent on such a level that meant that I had to travel across the world to really discover how I want to navigate my time. And then obviously by going to Bali, even before that, training for Kilimanjaro, I discovered yoga because I knew that I needed to figure out how to breathe going on the way up and stuff. And so when I went to Bali, I just suddenly started finding myself in these different workshops, and I was like, oh, breath work. And yeah, the rest is history really there. But yeah, I'd say that was the turning point for me to begin to tap into that.
Oh, I love that so much. And it just rings home about the like essence of who we are as a human is so multifaceted, and there's so many layers to us. And I think that's really what I urge everyone to do, is to explore, because if you never explore, you'll never know and learn. And travel, so resonate with that. I think traveling to parts of the world where you would never normally go, or just seeing the way other people live. And what I really found in Asia especially was that seeing how people live on so little and have the most fulfilling, beautiful life. I really felt in that moment that I understood that in the Western world we so overcomplicate things, and it doesn't need to be that. We make the obstacles in our lives, and I believe that just full stop. As humans, I think we perpetuate situations, like especially with anxiety, we're like preempting these outcomes, making it so much more complicated. But it's so beautiful, and how incredible to like prep for that massive achievement, but like spiritually, physically, mentally, it's all sort of combined in that, isn't it? And that you taking ownership.
Reflecting was what is wild, like just reflecting on how I was in my internal world around that time. How even like me and my ex broke up, it was just like an explosion. It was so chaotic and wild. But then even before we broke up, suddenly I literally was like, I'm gonna book this Kilimanjaro trip, bearing in mind I didn't think for myself at all. I was an anxious, insecure, passive doormat. So suddenly just to wake up and just decide that feels so like a higher source.
Absolutely.
Even when I wasn't even that like-minded yet. Like thinking about it, I'm like, that is wild. And then just the bridge that it was when I broke up with him, or when we broke up, that I had to keep showing up in. I have to raise bloody $3,500 right now. How the hell am I going to do that? So that was suddenly, it just really helped support this heartbreak. And find this level of like strength in myself to
absolutely
and I not only did I raise $3,500, I raised $6,500.
Wow.
Like it was the most empowering sensation. And when I got to the top of that mountain, it was bizarre, and it's just the feeling of like, I bloody did this. And then coming back and then calling my mum or my dad, I just remember bursting into tears and just being like, at the age of 21, just being like completely emotional and overwhelmed in a really beautiful way. Like I think that was so it was a very powerful moment in my life, for sure. It was the start, it was the beginning of my life.
Absolutely. That how like that declaration to yourself in that you can achieve anything you put your mind to. It's like that, isn't it? Like that, almost like the transition into womanhood almost is like, the process to get to the mountain. I use that analogy quite a lot of like, how it's always an uphill climb, but the view from the top's worth it. And I feel like it is so symbolic to what you've just experienced as well, within that process. Totally. And almost a reminder to you that like, when you are going through these hard times, like, I climbed a bloody mountain. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I can do anything.
I do come back. And I think something that I think I want to live the rest of my life like, and just in general, is what I find very healing. And I know this is an extreme way of doing it, but really leaning into things that scare me and that are super terrifying, and where it's literally like you have your life in your hands, or like it's just really pushes you to meet yourself. Because when you put yourself in these positions to really face fear or face yourself, or really kind of feel this responsibility, when you achieve it, when you succeed in it, it's these checkpoints in your life where when you are then faced with a distressing situation, or you're nervous, or you having a sense of responsibility, you can literally go, I climbed a fucking mountain, I can do this. Or I jumped out of a plane, I can do this. Or I survived that, I can, and it's like,
absolutely.
And I think having these checkpoints in your life of recognizing the strength and resilience and courage and achievement, being able to really notice those incredible achievements for yourself, even if it's literally like the achievement of, healing from injury, healing from disease, like something that's super like required so much strength and resilience from you. Recognizing those moments in your life, even like if anyone's listening now, just taking a moment to like write down moments in your life that have been that for you from as young as you can remember, and being like, if I can do that, that is something that I'm going to return to when I feel like I can't do anything, or when I'm not capable, or I couldn't do that. Oh, hang on a minute, I actually could if I applied myself, like, because I've done it before. And if you're sat here listening thinking, like, you're beginning writing down and you're like, I don't have many checkpoints, then create checkpoints, checking with yourself, like, what would terrify me? It would terrify me to jump out of a plane, so let's look into it. And and it's just because the way you feel after is it, you feel invincible, you feel like a super human, you feel like you can achieve anything, and that, just knowing that that's the reward you'll get, is enough to put yourself in that position. Yeah.
No, fully. I really resonate with all of that. And I think, even how you got yourself there, it's almost like divine intervention, wasn't it? Like from the universe being like, you're not getting it, Megan. We're going to have to throw you in the deep end. We're going to have to just cut and paste you into that. And I feel like, really in my life, with my own healing, it's definitely been that. And to the points where I'm always hit with like a brick wall of failure for me to really shake up and see. And I actually believe that my whole life, I think I was meant to go into this work of like helping women and healing and all of these things. But first I had to break and I had to heal myself. And that's part of this process. And I think what I know for sure, and I know you've mentioned this word, and it's a really important word to me, is the embodiment. Because I think everything I do is from a place of real authenticity. And I know that for you as well, like you're not just saying it for the sake of it or doing it for the sake of it. It means something on a really deep level. And I think this with mentoring and healing and this space is like so over commercialized, and it's like, and anyone can do and be whatever they want to be. But I feel like when it comes from a place of deep knowing and resilience and learning the hard way over and over again, you just embody everything you stand for. And that's why it's such a more beautiful, fulfilling journey. And that you can get yourself out of the darkness and also others. And I think what you said there as well, I would give exactly the same advice, like write down what you've achieved, all of those things. And it's building up what I like to call a case study for yourself to see, when your mind tells you you're not good enough, you can't do it, you've got physical evidence there, a tangible thing to look at, to be like, I can do it, I've done it over and over again. And I always think as well, in those moments where it's hard, it's like, what is this actually teaching me? Because this is really the grand picture, isn't it? Because you zoom out now at that relationship and you think, if that never happened, I would never have done that. Like if I didn't break up with that partner, or, if it, maybe if you didn't go to Kilimanjaro, you might have ended up going back. It might have ended up being more toxic. So, it's all of these things, isn't it? It's the beauty of life. And I just think, it's so wonderful to hear like everything and where you've been and what you're doing. I was going to ask you actually a few times, what star sign are you?
Scorpio.
Yeah, do you know what? I felt like that in my mind. I was like,
I'm very deep.
Yeah, I was like, you're either a Pisces, Cancer, or Scorpio. And then you said one thing, and I was like, that's Scorpio. So I know that. But also, I was going to say to you, I don't know if you've checked your chart, but you might be going for your Saturn return at the moment.
I am, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought that at the beginning of the conversation, I thought you're in your Saturn return, and mine was turbulent to say the least. So I feel you 100%, and it's a really difficult time, but it's like, again, that transmutation. And I feel like on the other side of this, how much knowledge, wisdom, and like everything you are, how much more of that you've got to be like at the end of this process is just like so exciting. And I can't wait to see that as well, because I already think that you're incredible. So I feel like whatever you're going to do on the other side of the Saturn return is going to just be life-changing to so many people. So
thank you. I mean, I feel like my Saturn return started when I was 27. And it feels very present in my life, but I think this has just been the past like year, 2 years has been a moment. I guarantee when I'm double this age, I'm going to look back at this age and be like, that was a life-changing time. What a magical time. And I think, again, that comes from recognizing moments in my life that have happened, how dense and dark and intense and turbulent they were, but sitting here going, wow, that really made me who I am. I'm really grateful for that. Like there's a level of trust from experience that I've just got to trust and surrender to this time in my life, because I know that it's going to be something that will make me. It has broken me. It has broken me, but I trust in that as well. Like, because even like if I'm just being reflective on, maybe let's call it my Saturn return, like for me to step into this next phase of my life, I've needed to heal and have closure on this phase of my life. And I can't step into this next phase of my life until I have found an element of peace with what's made me who I am. And yeah, I really feel, the work that I've been doing I've been really supporting myself well. I've had to create a lot of space with a lot of people in my life, because I've had the capacity for myself. I've explored a lot of medicine over this past year, like plant medicine, and it's just been like, it's been magical. Like I'm having a good day today, let's put it like that, and it's been magical. But like even yesterday, like I went on a walk and I just with my partner, and I just like got really overwhelmed again by life, and just like, oh my God. So I think something that I've had to keep coming back to is just day by day at the moment, day by day, and just meeting what arises, really honoring how I feel in the day. Like even like tonight I had plans, and I woke up today and was like, don't have the capacity to be social today. I have the capacity for this podcast, and it wouldn't, if it was someone else's podcast, because it's you, I might have been a bit like, can we reschedule? But actually, like, I just woke up today, did my practice, and I'm sat here now. Like, it feels really good to talk about everything. And yeah, it's just like you said, healing's not linear. Healing's circular, and it's also, yes, the circle might get smaller, but it also might expand again. And it's just like this constant upward, downward spiral. But to keep the day by day dedication of like, I'm gonna show up for myself each day. And I think the importance of daily practice, the importance of having a sense of routine where you connect to yourself each day, meet yourself each day to understand how you can show up each day, is such ownership of your shit. And and like gives you a sense that, for me, that gives me a sense of control, where control might have laid in my life before being super toxic and detrimental to myself. I found a way of applying that need for control, even though we are never in control, but that need for control in a way that's like, well, if I dedicate an hour in my morning for my own self-care, I trust that the rest of the day I am more connected to myself to understand how to navigate better. Even if I navigate poorly that day, I've learned something the next day to then reflect on it and learn. Like, none of us are ever perfect. None of us ever arrive. Dare I say that there's not this destination of enlightenment where you stay there forever. Like, it's very much having the compassion to understand that perfection doesn't exist other than in the eyes of the beholder. So it's like, it's just more self-compassion. Like, it's actually sorry, I'm going on a rant. No. With, earlier I said how it's given me, my experiences have given me so much resilience, compassion, empathy, softness. And I've always felt that as such a powerful gift, because I'm able to give that so much to other people. But I think what I've come to realize in recent months, like very new information for me, is like, wow, I give that so freely, I give that so honestly, but to put it towards myself, like if I just put self in front of each one of those words, it has lacked. There has been a block, and how I react and treat myself to how I am in situations or have been, or I just I am my own worst enemy. I treat myself worse than anyone in my life, and that upset me deeply. And I was like, I need to fix that. I need to figure out how to like reverse that energy. Hence why I've had to just create a bit of like space in my life just for me to actually like try to be that person for myself. But to add another layer, because it's such a lonely place, being able to ask for help, getting therapy, speaking to family, speaking to people in my life that I know love me, but I've always struggled to be vulnerable enough to allow people to learn about how I feel. And actually by saying it, you realize who's in your life, and actually how, I mean, I've come to realize how loved and supported I am. And it's just been such a beautiful process. But it's taken 28 years to be able to allow people in, literally.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I was like really so grateful that you did, because I feel like the episodes that I've done on my own on this podcast have been really about everything you just said, that dedication, that consistency to yourself, the self-compassion, the self-love. So everything you just said about what you're applying in your own life is everything that I teach, and you are the embodiment of why it's important. So I'm so grateful that you shared that story, because it really does hopefully bring home to everyone that's listening that this is why it's important, for this very reason. And I so resonate with everything you're saying, because I literally did a reel about this the other day, and I put it on because I'm being like, my dedication to myself right now is to be more openly vulnerable, so people do know what it was I was going through at the time. And you know what you were saying there, it's like I used to cry myself to sleep every single night because I just couldn't speak about it. I just couldn't say. So for like 20 years, I think I said 10 years, but it really was about 20 in total. I just cried myself to sleep every night because I just wasn't open enough to be vulnerable. And yet the same thing, you know, everyone would come to me for their problems. I would help everyone out. And it was just that moment where, you know, the self-love practice for yourself has to be the number one. And then you open up and you can share and you can ask for help. That space is just the most enriching. And I think, I really do feel like that really is the strength that we all should have in our life. It's not this exterior, it's not this like arrogance or like I can do anything energy. The real strength is in being able to say, this is really hard, can you help me? You know, and I think if the world was able to acknowledge that and change in that way, gosh, we'd just create a more beautiful, open, kind, compassionate universe. And that is definitely really where I feel like, you know, maybe both of our work is in some sort of a degree through just being who we are. And I think that's a really lovely space. Thank you so much for sharing everything, Megan, because I feel like there was really, like, you've spoken on such really heavy terms and heavy things that you're going through, but they're all, it's laced with so much gold, you know, like everything you're saying is just from a space of knowing, embodiment, and just process. And I think that really is it, isn't it? The secret to living life fully, I think, is embracing the highs and the lows, and like you said, taking it day by day, being dedicated to yourself and that growth, and that knowing that this is just one more chapter that you need to go through in order to get to the other side of it. And actually, when you do take it day by day, you enjoy the process, you know. And I think such a beautiful a way that you're progressing. And I just remember going through my own processes of that, and even, you know, the shadowy parts of it that I feel, again, it's just so resonant of all of that. So thank you so much. I normally say about giving tips, but I feel like you've laced this whole conversation with all of what you've done and how you've processed your mindset. So I feel like I'm not going to ask you that because I feel like it's been so clear. But this soul to soul message, is there anything like in your heart that you feel called that you want to say, like anything that anyone listening maybe going through the same thing? Or
I do actually, and bear with me as I kind of go off on something that might be a bit random.
No, go ahead.
But something that I've been really, so I'm pretty creative, and sometimes the way I understand myself is through like imagery or story or theme or kind of metaphor, you could say. And when I'm good, when I'm in a good place, I like to see myself in this car, this vehicle, and I'm driving the car, and I'm aware that there's my younger self in the back. And I think for years I didn't know what this other energy was, but now I'm aware that it's my wounded maiden 14-year-old. She's always sat in the back. And on a good day, she's like got her earphones in, or she's looking out the window, and she's just like, she's present, but she's in her own space. She doesn't need to be heard. She's chilling. But sometimes along while I'm driving, or whether I stop off, she suddenly wants to backseat drive, and she wants to tell me how I'm doing, and she wants to she wants to get out, or she wants to do something. And I think for a lot of my life, I've been like, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Do you want to take the wheel? Okay, do you know what? It's just easier if you drive. And she'll literally muzzle me, put me in the boot, and take the wheel, and I am fucked. And so she's making all these crazy decisions. That's what 14-year-old Megan, toxic Megan, would make, and is completely steering my vehicle. And what I'm learning and coming to believe and in how to deal with this energy is, even if I drop her off, she's going to get back in the vehicle somehow. To try to get rid of her, I will only make her more angry. What I'm learning is understanding when she wants to speak, when she wants to be heard, to just maybe stop driving a sec, to turn around and just acknowledge her, see her, give her space, and just say, look, what do you want? Well, can I help you? And by actually listening and tuning in, I might be able to understand how best to help her, or maybe giving her something to do. So maybe it's like, I've listened to this, why not listen to this podcast? Or actually, do you want to go for a walk? If I stop for a bit, if I just pause, it's just like making sure that she never takes the wheel. She can, maybe sometimes she might want to sit in the front, but it's just having the boundary of being like, I am the driver of this car. I have a passenger, and that has to stay that way. And if for whatever reason she sneakily takes the wheel, I know that she's not still the owner of the vehicle. And some days I'm getting more and more taste of the fact that, I can say to her, fancy being dropped off here for a while. And she's like, yeah, I'll let you know when you need to come back. Or maybe if she doesn't, and maybe she's gone I'm in the car by myself for days, or I get to drive elsewhere, but then I might bump into her again. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, when it comes to your mental health, or when it comes to like these awful thoughts in your head, or your past, or whatever you want to call it, treating it like an old friend, or treating it like with love, treating your shadows with love and with compassion, like you would for another human that's in pain, that's sad, that's fearful, that's scared. Doing your best as the strong, individual, empowered, higher self that you are, finding ways to learn how to communicate with it, rather than telling it to shut up, rather than telling it that get out, rather than fighting it with fire. Find a way to treat it with love. And it's not easy. I'm still learning. I will always be learning. But I hope that analogy, it makes sense to me, might give you a picturesque, whimsical version of how you could view the chaos that is in one's mind.
Yeah, absolutely. No, as you were speaking, this is how we're in sync, Megan. It's actually crazy. I literally gave an analogy to my client the other day that trauma is like a screaming, tantruming child. And exactly what you've just said there, you have to actually acknowledge it. You can't just keep ignoring it, because the child's going to keep screaming. So, and at one point it will take over. So that was such a beautiful way of just saying exactly what I said to my client, that you have to face it and listen and understand, but equally you're the one in control. So yeah, really such a beautiful conversation today. And thank you so much for sharing your time and your space and your light, because I just think it's just, going to change the world. And I think these energies that, these shadows that we're battling are really to pave a way for this new, really authentic, deep path that we're forging through our own lives. So it's so beautiful to have you in my space and to share your conversation with everyone. And I mean, I know that we'll keep in contact, and maybe there's a chance that we'll collaborate in the future in some way again. But thank you so much, and I hope all the best with your healing and everything you're doing. And just it's really lovely to just be around you. So I think just lots of love and light.
Thank you for having me and for doing this work as well, like as from one woman to another. Thank you for showing up in the way that you are and honoring your truth, and for being brave enough yourself to have a podcast and to be vulnerable. I think I'm just thanking you for your work, and thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you.
Sherisse Bisram, Inner Power Activation Leader for Women. If you are ready to up-level, to elevate, to ignite your inner flame, to burn everything you once were, to trailblaze into your future, into all of your manifestations and more, then head to my website to book a free 30-minute alignment call. I have one-to-one containers available for 90 days and 180 days. I also have an online program for 6 weeks. It's a group program for women called Permission to Shine. That's also available as a self-study as well. I have a journal available on Etsy as well as worksheets. There's multiple ways to work with me, and I'm here to help you. You deserve to shine, to be the most amazing, most confident, fearless version of yourself. What are you waiting for?